Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I am Lynda Schmitz Fuhrig, digital archivist at the Smithsonian Libraries and Archives. I am sorry I'm unable to join you live today. If you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is at the end of the presentation. The tools I am discussing today are not an official endorsement by my employer. I think the last few years have demonstrated how much we are still using email, as well as other technologies like Teams and Slack. As the institutional repository for the Smithsonian, we are responsible for documenting its history, and this includes email collections. Researchers will have a wide variety of historic events from COVID responses to social injustice to climate change to dive into from this time period. Email has been used for years at the Smithsonian, everything from Lotus Notes to GroupWise, and we've been on Outlook for quite some time now, and now are in Office 365. We basically use the capstone approach, depends on your role at the Smithsonian, or it could be a specific project. We have been acquiring more accounts than usual in the past few years. Departures and retirements from Smithsonian leadership included 6 women earlier this year around the same time. As noted earlier, this is a rich corpus. The Collaborative Electronic Records Project was an email preservation pilot with the Rockefeller Archive Center. We tested various tools, devised workflows, and collaborated with another email project to co-develop an XML preservation schema known today as e-access. We wanted something that would last for the long term. XML is still around. It had to be something that a small shop could adopt with little IT support, and to manage the email at the collection level, not the individual messages. As part of the project, we developed software that was freely available. This was the SERP parser with a UI to create XML following the e-access schema. Written in Squeak Smalltalk programming language, many people were not familiar with it. While we had very thorough install documentation, it could take time to get it to run. We led various hands-on install workshops for other organizations, but we were not able to continue tech support of it or develop it more. Here we see an email account that has been preserved in e-access. While the display is not fun to read, we're not reliant on Outlook or some other application to read the PST file. It has all the elements of the message, including the message ID, timestamp, sender, recipient, message body, subject, encoded attachments, and so on, as well as it following the hierarchy of the account. To get the end result of this count, there are many steps, including acquiring the PSTs and working with central IT to do so, making backup copies, creating mbox files from the PSTs. And this can take a long time if it is a large account. The software we use generates a log with the subject, recipient, sender, date that the archivists do their appraisal and accessioning from. We do very little weeding since it can be time consuming. And the mbox files are used to get the XML output. So while it was constructed to handle thousands of emails, it would take a long time to process, especially as the Smithsonian accounts grew larger. The parser was slow and it wasn't scaling the way we needed. So it was time to develop something better. This is Dark Mail, digital archive for email. Written in Python, it worked with MySQL. We have now moved it to SQLite. And the Dark Mail XML component can run from a user interface or command line that gets us the e-access XML. It's faster than the SERP parser was, but it still requires those mbox files from the PSTs. In addition to the XML, there's a log that tells us how long it took, processing issues, and if duplicates are found based on the message ID. So you can load in the account and do review, do searching, and view the message. You can also do an export of mbox of a subset of messages. And regarding research, somebody can use a copy of the PST, the MBOX, or the XML. This is an older EPAD view that a researcher used on site to look at some messages. We had them use EPAD because the interface and the navigation was a little more researcher friendly than darkmail. So while this made some aspects better of email preservation processing with darkmail, we were hitting a big bottleneck with accessioning the accounts. And more people were starting to leave with larger accounts as this has expanded over time. IT has increased the size of our email accounts thanks to the cloud. The largest collection we've taken in so far is 90 gig. So the theme here is that it's just so much time to work on this and do the processing. Various email initiatives have been happening the last few years. We either have been involved with them or have been following them. So it was definitely informing where we wanted to possibly go next. So this was the previous workflow with darkmail. And to get this end result, many steps. Essentially, it's taking a long time to get the information to the appraising archivist with the creation of the MBOXes and the logs working together. So we moved to a new workflow that helped with some help from some additional tools, since now the appraisal logs are being created sooner and the MBOX files can be done later. And the virus scan has disappeared since that plugin has been discontinued by the vendor. This new process incorporates the use of the read PST utility to create the header outputs. This is much faster than doing the MBOX logs. The text logs are put into OpenRefine for some cleanup and exported out as one Excel doc for the archivist to do the review. And it has the subject, sender, recipient information, but still taking time. As an early tester of the phase 1 of EPAD, we have closely watched developments and we're delighted to see the EPAD Plus project offering some additional features. We participated as a 2022 EPAD Plus community tester, and then this reinforced the idea of exploring some changes again. This is the potential workflow we are looking at now. Acquiring the account, the PST for the collection goes right into EPAD with the Amalgamy add-in. The review and weeding is done within EPAD itself, and then the information to the archivist, and then it can go to the repository. Here, PSTs have been ingested into EPAD. That first step is reviewing the directories. So anything that's labeled junk, personal, timesheets will not move on to the next component of EPAD. We do take deleted sometimes though, because there are items of interest. So here's the dashboard with the appraisal view, and those folders were left out. From this screen, the browsing and weeding, or as it is in EPAD, not to transfer to preservation, can start. And there's a variety of options for doing the review. Looking at the lexicon of social security numbers and possible credit card numbers, particular senders and entities. For instance, here, all these general Smithsonian email announcements can be marked not to transfer to the next component or module known as processing in EPAD. These actual emails will be acquired elsewhere. Then when the review is done, it can go to the next module where more refining and authority work can be done if desired. And then all the components are packaged in this bag, and that can go into the repository when ready. So we have achieved some weeding and review of the account in an efficient way. But this isn't perfect either, as nothing is in digital preservation. I won't discuss all of these due to time. So some of the PSTs that are going into EPAD are not complete. I've noticed we're not seeing calendar and sometimes the route and path. We have had users attach email messages to their calendars in the past. Right before we started testing EPAD again, we were looking at Aid for Mail, seen here, because it also works with PSTs and can generate MBOX and CSV files. Comparing the outputs with EPAD and Aid for Mail, is how we determined that everything's not showing up. So I've talked a lot about how we use the logs for appraisal. ePad can export a CSV, but it lacks the subject line. So I put in a GitHub request to have this added as a feature, and I'm told that it will be coming soon in an upcoming release. So hooray. Lexicon search. We are seeing the credit card numbers picking up on the ORCID signatures in our emails, as well as number strings in the middle of some of the SharePoint URLs in our emails. It's caught some social security numbers, which is great, but also bad that people are still using or putting social security numbers in email. We have had issues with larger accounts crashing. We'll need to revisit this more. Could be a variety of things. My machine, network connectivity, both trying this out on Mac and PC. You need plenty of space and memory to run ePad, especially with the large accounts, because it's working with the original PSTs, generating mbox files, pulling out the attachments, and then other parts that are in the bag. The appraising archivist who has looked at it so far has liked it. So the next steps will include testing out the new release to see about the log, determining where our other tools fit in, and will the archivist be willing to learn ePad, or will they want to use the logs, or some combination of both? So I want to thank you for listening today, and if you have questions, please reach out and enjoy the rest of the symposium. Thank you.